Hello and welcome to Live with Impact. This is Angela Brown, and I'm here today with Omuugn, and we're talking about common sense. I know you're thinking common sense is not common, is it? Well, it depends on the information that you have. We're going to talk about that. And we're going to discover how we can find common sense in our everyday activities to help us make wiser choices. So please help me welcome Omuugn. How
Oh,
are
good
you
morning.
today?
I'm fine. It's a cold, blustery winter day.
As a parent of 19 children, there were probably a lot of opportunities that you saw that maybe a child, based on their own information, was making what they thought was common sense, and it didn't really make much sense at all. How, as a parent, do you instill that in children?
I actually have lots of stories to tell. For one thing, you have to make that a focal point of educating your children. I think one of the basic responsibilities of a parent is to make certain that their children are educated in the ways of life and how things work. We are inundated with so much that requires understanding. There's a certain level of understanding in our culture and in our way of doing things and in our way of learning that needs to be imparted to the children. A lot of times you do things automatically because of your experience, but your children haven't had those experiences. And so a lot of times they have no idea why you're doing what you're doing, or why you would do it that way, or why you would do it now. We relate to people in a certain way by the way life flows. If you have multiple relationships in a home, you have to find a way that all of those things fit together like pieces in a puzzle. You need to sit your children down and say, we're going to talk about this and that and the other. Make sure they understand so that you're on the same page when you do things. Otherwise, you can run into chaos, and there are generation gaps that you're not aware of. If you listen carefully to what your children are saying, they're exposed to a different world than you are. I know that when I grew up, it was drastically different than children today with all of the electronic devices that people use. That was not in my culture at all. So you have to be aware of what's going on in the generation, in the culture that you're presently in. And then you need to differentiate. For example, when I grew up, there were certain moral values. And the moral values were in the language that was used on television and how families interacted. And there was a lot of modesty. There was no foul or guttural language. Whereas today, the programs are rated anywhere from family to PG-13, or you have to be 18, or this is adults only, or this is a program that no one should watch.
It's interesting because when we started our YouTube channel, and this is the cleaning channel, we decided that we would take Disney's approach. And we figured that in order to be family friendly, we would be G rated and we would not show any alcohol or any drugs or any needles or any firearms. And we would not use any cuss words at all. It was a specific decision that we made, even with no one telling us that was necessary. But we used it as one of our biggest marketing tools because we said we are G rated and family friendly. Every single episode, without fail, you can play it in the car while your children are driving, you're driving them to school, or if you're in the home and you just want to play it, no surprises. One of the things that happened with that decision, and that was my common sense, but the decision then made us one of the highest rated in the highest bracket for advertisers. It's interesting because 7 years down the road, YouTube came out and said, our advertisers are complaining to us that there's a lot of the stuff that you just mentioned. And they made this whole new series of rules and parameters. And it cut a whole lot of YouTubers out of the game because all the content that they created fell into that category of kind of on the fringe with the creativity. So it's interesting when you say common sense. It's helpful, I think, if you can kind of future cast your business and say, is this ever going to come back to bite me if I make these poor decisions in the beginning?
Yeah, when I was younger, family friendly meant that the dresses came all the way to the ground and they came all the way up around the chin. And in fact, some of the programming that comes on television, I've had some of my children ask, "Why is she out here in her underwear?"
Mm.
Because the styles and what is considered modest and appropriate has really changed over time. You still have to make your own assessment of what is proper and improper, what is right and what is wrong, what your limits are, what your boundaries are. For example, using foul language is common now. You can tune to almost any channel and you're going to hear words that were unacceptable just a few years ago. It's just common language now. So you have to decide whether or not you want to be a part of this cultural change or whether you want to make a life structure that you live in according to your set of principles.
All righty. Come back next week, same time, same place. We're going to be discussing communication. Ah, another great topic. All right. Until then, have a great week.
All right. See you next week.